everybody, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host Ann, Disembodied Hands Quindy, Disembodied Beard John, and sometimes my puppy Kiki, who is standing in the door but is not in here. Are you just watching? You just gonna watch the show from there? She's like, yeah, I'm sad, it's work day. Squeak, squeak, what? Come here. Come here. What? Squeak, squeak. Come on. Nope. Alright, I'm ignoring you then. Hi, Polly. Thank you for the resub. 19 months. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Oh, yep. She's abandoning us. Hello. Oh, wrong button, Ann. Wrong button. There we go. Still catching. Brain is still catching up with the morning. Alrighty. We're back on Caerindra. We are gonna... I believe I was using stone gray or something similar for her rocks, and so I think it's time to do that. I need to prime her little brazier so that we can also start on that, but I'll get the basic stonework done at least. Yeah, stone gray. Hey, Caerindra. It's a day. It's a day. Alright, we're going to get some stone gray. If you don't have shadowed stone, which is the shadow for this triad, that's also a good dark stone color. One thing you can do is do like 3 drops of stone gray with 1 drop of brown liner. It'll approximate it pretty well. I'm just going to do that. Let me get my palette in view. View palette. And where is my silly little brown liner? There it is. Hiding at the top of my table. I have no idea what that is. So put 1 drop of the brown liner in there, making it look like a very odd eyeball. And why is that fitting? What is it and why is it fitting, Caerindra? Alrighty, and then we'll have to have highlights. We'll think about doing different colors for the highlights, though. And I am going to probably... In winter, I'm just not going to do the greenish shadows that I usually do on stone. Most of the green will have kind of expired by the time a hard winter hits, or be covered over. Lichens will be covered over with snow, most likely. So I'm going to just go with more straight gray and brown colors for the stone. Oh, nice! Like they used to like do for their like dead, like burn the ship with the funeral procession. That's cool. Yes, so this is this fits. This fits. She's not really Viking. We don't have any. I don't know if we have any Vikings in the Reapers line. I guess barbarians sometimes come close. So to mix this up, it's going to give me a darker gray that's very, very close to shadowed stone. And I think I'm going to go dark with this stuff. Let's see if I've got enough coverage. Yeah, I do. I'm going to go dark. I'm going to put a coat over everything. I'm going to bring it back up. Because I'm going to be putting snow on this stuff, I want the stone to actually be pretty dark. I'll probably use some blues in the shadows. I want the base to be the same. And usually, often when you put a coat of paint on cork, as we used to construct this this thing, it'll just kind of soak in. So putting a second coat on is never a bad idea. Essentially, you're kind of putting a layer of plastic resin over the top of the cork at that point. Paint helps to seal the cork and to protect it from damage. Oh, okay. She's got thistle. You're right, and moors. Although you don't have a monopoly on moors, I'm sure, but. Ah, streamed online. Yeah, that's cool. Very neat. Yeah, I kind of want to get to Norway and Switzerland and a bunch of other Scandinavian countries at some point. I guess I should make sure I'm in focus and also close in. Let's get closer and let's get focuser. That's not a word, Anne. But yeah, I'll probably use blue in the shadows. Probably a darker version of the blues that I use on Caerindra herself. There we go. We'll get everything nicely covered over, and then we'll put some more shadows on, and then we'll start bringing up highlights. Getting the griffin stone colored is going to help a lot, helping it look like it blends into the base. Yeah, our biggest limiting factor is Kiki. So we're just getting this painted in. It's a little bit darker than the coat we originally put on, but you actually can't tell because the original cork was dark brown. So putting that stone gray over the original dark brown cork made it look darker anyway. There, we got more like that. Gonna wait till the green stuff is dry and then put another coat over the top of it. I didn't prime it. I could have, but that would have put white into the equation. I might have needed more coats, so I'm just doing the straight over the green stuff. Yeah, any Scandinavian roots I have are way back. I mean, my genetics say that I have some in there, but who knows when? Certainly not within. I think my family is like the only things they were able to dig up were like to the Last Crusade, and we're pretty. Other than the Scotch, Irish, and German, we're pretty. Who knows? Who just knows? Whenever the rest of that genetics came in. Hey, Ultra Squid, how's it going? You were supposed to go to hell, but lockdown thwarted us. That's out of context. I assume that's an autocorrect problem. Or is hell an actual name of something? Or is it hell in Norway? Ah. So there are actual hells out there. Well, why am I not surprised? I assume it's not actually hell. Like, it sounds like if it's in Norway, it would actually be pretty. My paint is not wanting to dry very fast because we have moisture in the air out here. We're supposed to get rainy again soon. Like tomorrow, I think. Have a bunch of rain coming over the coming week. Bunch. Not huge chances of it, so maybe we'll dodge a lot of it. But we're going to lose our warm weather, which makes me sad. Yeah, heavy rain and strong winds expected in Bay Area tomorrow. Oh, wow. Might be as much as 1.75 inches of rain in San Jose, which is close. It's pretty much going to be, we're going to get hit on the way to San Jose. Could be the biggest storm of the year headed for the Bay Area. Huh. We're 5 degrees above normal right now. But it's about to get cold. By Wednesday evening, the entire Bay Area will be engulfed by heavy rain and gusty wind. Well. It's a good thing we moved all of our cushions for our patio furniture inside. There are funny names to places. Alright, I think I'm actually going to mix up, while I'm waiting for this to dry, because the humidity is ridiculous, I am going to, just curious. Where's my humidity? Oh yeah, humidity is 70%. My paint is not going to dry anytime soon. Alright, I'm going to actually mix up more of this dark color, actually. Same storm is like giving Portland a miss and going to Seattle, huh? Wants to punish Seattle. Well, that means my I guess they might get hit by it. I think that my in-laws are headed to Hawaii this weekend. If they had headed out last weekend, they would miss it. A world tour. Oh, I actually think I need a little more. And we don't need to be perfect because it's stone, so there's really no call to be absolutely perfect. So almost there. I can almost put another coat on. I think I went a little darker. Oh no, this is about right, same. Good. Alright, I just need to look at the feet and make sure I got close to them. Sure, Kornika. Yeah, you'd have to assign circles to it, like, which hell is the first circle and which hell is the second circle and so on. Oh, interesting. I have actually a little hole through. I can see through this little gap here that it actually, this gap goes all the way through to the other side. It's a very small aperture. But it actually does go through. It makes me want to hollow it out a little bit. Alright, I'm going to give the griffin time to dry. I'm going to mix up some bluish colors Probably not corporeal shadow, probably working with blue liner and something that'll even take the blue a little bit more out. Could also use Death Knight Black, but I want to probably keep in the same kind of area that my like Ashen Blue and Templar color here is going. So blue liner plus white tends to go close to that color, so that's where I'm going to go. Yeah, it's a griffin. It has ears. As usual, if you wonder how I did anything that appears on this stream, you just have to go and check out Reaper's YouTube. All of our episodes go over there. And if you go to Reaper's Discord, they've been organized, linked by playlist, so you can always look back on a project by going there. I'm not sure if the playlists only happen after we're done with a model. It seems like that might be likely, but I'm not certain on that. But you can always look for Caerindra or her item number on our YouTube also to just find the latest episodes. The basing was something we did toward the end. Took several episodes, at least 2, maybe 3, to do the griffin. But I started out with a core of cosclay, which is like Fimo, and then built on top of it with green. Alright, I want to put a little bit of 2 things. I'm going to actually take some of my shadow color and put it into my blue liner. And I'm going to add, let's see how much that brings it up. Yeah, that's pretty good. That'll gray it out. Still keep a bit of the blue. That's a good shadow. I need it to stay dark enough. I don't need it any lighter than this, but I wanted to kind of marry it up with that one, that color. Does a slight cool shift to it, but it's not as blue. Oh boy, Cornico, you guys getting hit this year. But we're almost to February, and that means we're almost to March. We just have to survive through the rest of the winter. It's just going to make me wish that I was in Hawaii again. Yeah, I'm always, in the middle of winter, I'm always just like, when is it spring? And I'm lucky because where I live now, and for that matter in Texas, we're always on the front side of spring. Like we get spring earlier than the rest of the country, except for Florida probably and Arizona and such, but you know, we're relatively early with spring where I am. Oh, okay. Not to do individual playlists because it was a huge list you have to sort through. Yeah, I mean, it's not it's just time consuming, right? But once you have the majority of things organized, once you have your playlist established, then it's easy enough to go through all the videos. And I mean, it takes immense amounts of time with how many videos we've done, but I mean, that's cool that we're doing playlists though. I mean, it makes it a proper resource for the community. Even though you have to listen to us all babble on all through every episode. But, you know. Alright, I'm going to put a second coat on my Griffin, which is mostly dry at this point. course, the second coat will also take a while to dry, but it'll at least give us a stable coat on our griffin. Although spring is nice. I mean, I don't know. I always went to my trips to Scotland and Ireland were always in the springtime because it was like off season a little bit still, but it was still warmer than, winter. And there was a lot of rain, but I always thought it was perfectly hospitable. That was a while ago, though. We all know the weather does change. I used to go in like March because you could always get a cheap flight over on those airlines. Yeah, right. The backlog is a huge chunk of work. Well, I mean, the easy thing to do would be to go for as much time as you've got, right? At least whatever for the last year or whatever, and then just oh wow, I've got like little patterns on this and I didn't even notice it. This is a weird piece of wood. I wonder if I stole this one from David. Anyway, and then just go forward, right? Instead of backwards. Like leave the oldest models. Except maybe it makes sense to maybe pluck out some that I reference a lot, like Rock Troll, and make a playlist for them. But it's not like every model that we do needs a playlist. I try to do new things on each model, but it doesn't always work that way, so there are definitely ones that I show more often that I've kept, like Mouseling with his lighting effect, and Knoll with his textures, and Rock Troll with his lighting effect and crystals. So I think there are some obvious candidates for playlists. And then there's just like the models that we paint that, maybe aren't doing as much. So I'm just putting a cold shadow underneath the brow here. But yeah, it is a huge amount of work. That's the thing. And because it's a huge amount of work, to be honest, Quindy, it makes sense for a Reaper to have somebody paid on it instead of somebody who's a volunteer, if they want it done. Just putting some shadow in at this point and get closer. Around the eye, around the mouth. Gonna start painting these shadows in various areas. If I go where the paint is still wet, I can do a little bit of a wet blend. I want to bring up something because I was chatting with a new patron on my Patreon messages the other day, an email, and I wanted to emphasize something, which is, I mean, we don't talk about it a lot, right? I give you guys, like, you're like, I want to do this. And I'm like, oh, you can go and look at this model or look at these videos, But just going to look at a video that shows you how to do something, although many of you already understand this, is not going to make you an instant expert at it. No matter how good the video is, you are still going to have to put in the time. And nobody likes to hear this, but so like if you try something from the video and it's just not working for you and you get frustrated, try to just step away and understand that in order to do those videos and to break down that stuff for you guys, I've had decades of practice. It took me a long time to get the hang of layering and to make wet blending consistently work. And that's me. So when you try these things, if they don't work right away, or don't even, if you really struggle with them, just keep working at it. Like grab a model you don't really care, make that your practice model, and go back to it and just work with the paint. Another thing I had to bring up to somebody recently was, if it's not working, you know that there are three main factors, one of which you can, two of which you can control, one of which you really can't without just practicing. And the thing you cannot control is actually your brush control. Like, you can work at your brush control, but it's going to take time to build it, right? It's not something you can just flip a switch and change. Whereas the other two factors are paint consistency and brush loading. So those things you absolutely can control instantly. It just takes the willingness to experiment, to not get the result you want right away, but to actually change factors slightly and see if you get a better result, right? It's the whole scientific method thing. It's like, okay. Creating playlists moving forward. Awesome. Great. We know you're the best, Quindy. We know. We are very aware. But yeah, so when you go over and you're like, you know, like, if I say, oh, you could use wet blending for that, when you like describe something you want to do, and you run over to my fundamentals videos and you watch, the wet blending one, and you're all excited, and then you try to do it and it completely falls apart. You just can't get it to work. It's like, it's not that you can't get it to work forever. It's just that you didn't get it to work the first time you tried it. So when you have that, then question, okay, paint consistency and brush loading. Put a little less paint on your brush, maybe. Thin your paint a little bit more or a little bit less. I ran into somebody yesterday who gave me was having an issue, showed me a picture, and it looked like both, and that's a lot. A lot of that is when you're starting out, or when you're even at the intermediate stage and you're trying to master layering and blending. A lot of it is brush loading, like you're not getting enough paint off of your brush. Sometimes you're not getting enough like in your brush, but more often it's just that you haven't unloaded it a lot, right? Because people get impatient and it takes time to unload, especially if you're using a bigger brush. And so you can look at, and most people either thin their paint, you can go either way. I see a lot of people who work too thick, but I also see plenty of people who are working way too thin. They've gone overboard on their thinning. But those things are things you can adjust immediately in the moment. So if a technique isn't working, don't blame yourself necessarily out the gate. Try to make sure, okay, am I unloading my brush like I should? Am I thinning my paint like I should for this technique? How much should I be thinning my paint for this technique? And did I do that, right? Or did I overdo it? And take those factors and factor it in, because you're going to need to get used to the paint. This is why I try to hand you guys, why I give you guys the knowledge instead of just handing you the fish. Is like, if you really want to troubleshoot something that's not working, you've got to have that skill set. You've got to understand, like, oh, okay, I'm going to do an experiment now and put a little less paint on my brush and see if this works better, right? And oh, it's still not working. Well, maybe I'll thin my paint a little bit more. Or if I've already thinned it a lot, well, maybe I'll add a little more paint in and see if it works there. Usually, if you use your noggin, you can figure out kind of like, oh, okay, what is this likely to be a problem with, right? If the paint is running everywhere, it could be either that you have too much on your brush or that you've thinned too much. So you look at the technique that you're working on and you go, okay, which is likely to be the answer? And you alter that and you try it again. But nothing's a magic bullet. You can watch all the videos in the world and you're not going to be able to like internalize all of that without actually putting paint on the model. It may help. A lot of people, myself included, sometimes will improve just by like thinking about the process and iterating on it in our heads. Not everybody has a brain that works like that. And most of the time I still have to practice. I still have to put it into practice before I can nail the thing. Now that I have the brush control and the paint consistency and the brush loading down, though, any new technique is much easier for me to master. Because I already have those fundamentals in play. I already understand, like, okay, what am I trying to do? How much paint do I want on my brush for a technique like this, right? I already get that. I already get how much should I thin my paint to get this result. Usually I can look at somebody's work and like instantly know whether they're using thicker or thinner paint. But you don't have to get to that state to have success with these techniques. You just need to experiment enough so that you understand what you need for that specific technique in the moment. And that experimentation is nothing that a video can do for you. You have to do it yourself. And the best tactic is to think of it as fun, because it is fun. You're messing around. Just mess around. Grab a model. Grab an Ector Bones model from the many Kickstarters that you haven't painted. Not looking at anybody specific out there for that. I'm as bad. And just mess with it. If it's a Bones model, you can get another one for $3, right? So I'm just putting in shadows. You can see how I'm shading slowly. But yeah, I don't talk enough about it. I'm quick to recommend sources, but I think I don't talk about enough that once you have the source, watch the source, attempt the source. But if you don't have success, it's not like a failure of you or necessarily even the source. It's just that in order to get it to work, it just takes a little more development. You cannot go from 0 to 10 by watching a video. You cannot even go from 5 to 10 by watching a video. Although the higher you get, the more skilled you get as a painter in general, the closer you get to being able to do that. The closer you get to being able to just look at the video, understand what's going on, and instantly like grok it. Like make your first attempt not be a suck fest, right? It's the higher you get up the ladder, the easier it is to try to jump a rung. But to get really confident and experienced with a technique, it takes time. And the great thing is this hobby is just terribly fun. So like the time isn't like a slog like it would necessarily like be in some. Like it's like my knitting. Like I'm not in a hurry to become an awesome knitter. I pick up little things every time I try a new project. I just try to pick up one little thing that I can understand fully. So like right now, even though I'm not doing I'm doing a couple new stitches, but they're easy stitches. They're just knits and purls alternating in different patterns. And I am instead focusing with this blanket project, I am focusing on keeping my borders neat. So that was a new technique kind of thing that I had to learn, is like I've got all these, like all my margins, all my borders are kind of loose and weird and wobbly. What's going on? So once I figured out how I had to knit my edges, now I'm practicing that, right? So I'll come out of this project not having necessarily learned like a bunch of new groundbreaking things. I'm not learning cables or anything like that. I'm just learning within my current structure. I'm getting better at the fundamentals. And it's fun. It's still fun. It's still fun to be making something, right? It's still something to be creating something. Yeah, and I mean, I listen to music if I'm in the mood for tunes, or I listen to my latest audiobook if I'm in the mood for that. But mostly, I just enjoy being in the zone with my project. And even if you're not actively trying to learn anything when you're painting, we're kind of learning all the time, right? You are kind of trying stuff and determining, well, that didn't work, or oh, that worked really well. I'm really happy with that, right? So it's not like if you fail at wet blending the first time, that you have to stop and sit there and study wet blending in order to get it. If you just paint and you just practice it every once in a while, you will start to understand what you need to do to get it to work. And remember also that wet blending is highly environmental. Like if you've got heavy humidity like I have out here, it's a breeze. If you have a drier climate or you're working in air conditioning, which is usually lower humidity, then it's going to be harder. So I'm just outlining a bunch of rocks down here. You kind of see the blue shadows coming in compared to just the straight stone here that's just gray. Yeah, and that's also what, identifying your success is important. People don't think that way necessarily, but you can't just drum on yourself when you fail. You've got to also look at how you're doing well and give yourself kudos, right? A lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people struggle with telling themselves that they did well or acknowledging that they did something well. They're always saying, no, it wasn't good enough. But you got to give your soul both things, right? And sometimes I end up finding the little ways that you're progressing. Like for me, my borders being nice and tight and neat and square now, my knitting, that's a tiny little thing. For anybody experienced in knitting, they're just that's the easiest thing in the world, right? But I don't care. It's a huge step for me. So you've got to keep it in perspective. And this is where the whole judging yourself by other people's results thing comes in, which we do tend to do being humans. We like to compare ourselves to people who usually have a crap ton more experience and time learning than we do, right? We love to do that. Yeah, I keep my mistakes in my knitting. I actually don't unravel anything. Unless I'm just doing my first stitches and I do a blurb or realize that I've done it incorrectly. But I just leave my problems in. I'm just one, if you have one incorrect stitch in a pattern, nobody's gonna notice it in a whole thing. And two, I'm just I like to see where I've come from, right? This is why why we're always telling people, keep your first minis so that you have a measure. Don't strip them. Keep them so you have a measure of what you've come from when you need to be encouraged. Yeah, I actually watched a YouTube video that talked about how to get neat edges by doing essentially all of it. I'm just doing the whole knit every stitch at both ends, but I'm doing tiny stitches. And he was use just the tips of your needles and just slide, slide the stitch over and onto the other needle. Don't poke the whole needle through it. And it gave me much better edges. I'm very happy now. Because this whole blanket that I'm doing for Kiki is just a bunch of big rectangles, right? So it's about having good edges. I'm trying a couple of new stitches. I'm doing moss stitch for the first one. I really like it, actually. And then I'll do basket for one of the big cream colored parts, because the cream yarn should show the basket pattern really well. But yeah. So just stuff like that, just little things. Just little things. And I like not to think of it as failure. I know some people aren't bothered at all by thinking of something as failure because they've got that healthy kind of skill chain going on where they're fail is learning. But not everybody can make that instant leap in their heads. So a failure, if the word fail is kind of triggering to you, because I know it is for a lot of people, then don't use that word. Just, go I'm just iterating. This is just the latest iteration of my skill. And even if I make a mistake, I'm learning from it. So it's all good. I can always correct this on the next model. I can even, with mini painting, you can even correct it on the current model if you recognize that you want to paint over it. It's your choice whether you want to correct something or leave it to stand to remind yourself that you've come a long way later on. It's up to you. Some people, they don't even want the context. They just, they're just they paint over it, they strip it, they repaint it. They don't care that they don't have an example of their early work. But more often than not, I hear from people that they regret not keeping an example of their early work, especially those of us who actually get decently good so that, our friends are actually really impressed and say, well, I could never do that. Once you get to that, I could never do that level, that's when it's valuable to take out your first mini and go, oh, yeah, this is where I started. Because again, it's we like to just look at the end result and go, oh, that's, this person is brilliant, when we don't see all the broken things behind them that they had to wreck to get to where they are, right? Because And I don't get it sometimes because, it's like hard work is unpopular right now. Doesn't it feel like that sometimes? Like it feels like hard work is characterized as a bad thing sometimes. Like it's like our secret desire for the magic bullet is being played up in the narrative, and the just the way that hard work and actually trying hard sometimes feels good is played down. Not in every discipline, and certainly not everywhere, but I just feel like that sometimes. I feel like when I talk about you have to work, you have to put in the time on this stream, I feel like there are like 3 or 4 people that just click off. You know? Right, Moonlight. You always have some stuff, right? There's some stuff, even with my old dry brushed Chaos Hound, which is my oldest mini that I still have. I still am happy with like some things about it, right? I'm still happy with how my tiger stripes turned out, right? Even though I could do much better now, for the time, it was actually like better than the majority of my friends probably were doing. I still really like that critter. So but yeah, so I feel like sometimes I'm very quick to recommend, now that I have a recommend to make, to recommend a model that we've done before on this stream, or to recommend, that answers the question. But just because we answer the question doesn't mean that you don't have to find your own answer to the question in your own painting style. It's like, I can answer the question, this is how I did it, but that might not work for you. And the might not work for you might just be that you haven't painted enough. It might be just that simple. And it gets frustrating how much time sometimes development can take. But when it's something fun, then the development time isn't wasted. It's just relaxing. Just relax and paint the best you can paint. Or paint it how you want to paint. Don't concentrate on best at all. Some people just really aren't in this hobby to be the best, and that's cool. They just want to paint stuff, and I get that. It's very freeing. That's how I am with my knitting. Like, I've managed to totally non-competitive my knitting, which is so nice. Like, all I want to do is, like, acknowledge that I'm a newbie knitter and just knit things. And slowly feel more competent at it. Like, but mostly it's just a relaxy, mindless thing that I can do while I'm hanging out with David and he's playing a computer game. Hey, it was not a GW obsession with tiger stripes. It was totally a me obsession with tiger stripes, Cornico. Yes, yeah. Yup. Moonlight on the nose. Yep. But diligent hard work is like totally not cool. It's not sexy, right? It's not sexy. It's what makes you sexy. But people like don't want to hear that, right? And I find this in the writing space too. My favorite coach is my favorite coach because her favorite, like her top saying, other than always question the premise when somebody feeds you a line, is that there is no magic bullet. There is no magic bullet. You will not ever find one. Like, the closest thing we've gotten to magic bullets in painting is contrast paint and stuff like that. And you know what? For the results it gives, it's a great bullet. But it's not going to make you, like, if you're really, like, if you're trying to get better, if you want better looking miniatures, it's not going to get you to, like, the level of some of the better painters, right? It's gonna give you a good result for the time. A very good result for the time. It's nice that we have that because it means, I think, a lot of gamers are actually getting more into painting because they can put out a result easily that they like, right? And when you have early success, it sometimes encourages you to keep going. So, Yeah. Well, you can get. I mean, I feel like it accelerates the process of getting a decent gaming model on the table, and I know people who are very happy with just doing that. Like that's all they want, and that's so cool. But it's not a magic bullet for like learning to layer right. It is probably useful in teaching you how to apply washes, because in order to get it to work right, you don't want any brush strokes, so you have to like apply that contrast paint. So we're still shading, by the way. We're using our blue to just start to bring in shadow. I'm going to bring in more shadows down here. Yeah. Yes, decent results with a minimum of effort. Yep, JBT. Yeah, I mean, it's attractive, right? The contrast paints are popular because I mean, I guess you can call it a crutch, but I mean, it's, I don't know if I'd call it a crutch. It's like, it is if you start just depending on it, right? If you depend heavily on it, but then get frustrated that you can't do what you want to do with the paint, I could see that it could be a crutch if you like just that's always your go-to and you have to do it, or you just don't know where you are and you're just like flailing around, right? I suppose then. I hate to call it a crutch though, because it has encouraged so many people, those paints have encouraged so many people who otherwise hated painting to actually like painting. Like my ex being one of them. So I really can't, I really almost don't want to even call them a crutch, because they're like, it's your body tried that and failed you. Yes, it's true. Yeah, right. Oh, really? You got trolled that contrast paint would get rid of people like you? Oh, that's BS. I feel about contrast paint like I feel about Duncan from Games Workshop. No matter what else you may think, it and he have helped a lot of people get into the hobby. And I am just never adverse to that. I'm never going to knock that. Not ever. When you can make something that does take a lot of time and effort seem approachable by giving people an early win, like I just don't see the downside. The attitude that it's going to get rid of like good mini painting, like people who want to perfect their skills in mini painting, that's just silly. There are always going to be people in any discipline that want to push themselves. It is the nature of humanity. There are people like that in every discipline. And just like throwing contrast paint out there doesn't get rid of those people, nor does it get rid of their results. That's just a bad advertising campaign. Yeah, Richard, yeah. Yeah, yes. Yeah, Duncan has found his perfect niche like, and he seems like a cool guy. So now I'm going to bring in a bit more shadow in here. I want to really bring out some of the things that are like over others. I want to bring out some of the detail in the stone that we sculpted. Yeah, yeah. Well, there's times when some of them are nice and really vibrant, pigmented, like some of the red. Like, I really do love this red. This red, that one, Flesh Terror's red. This is a sexy color. I would absolutely use this as a starter and go over it with other reds and with layering. Absolutely, except that it's, not matte, so I have to doctor it. That's the only problem with the contrast paints is the finish. But that's just something that you just deal with. So I'm going to just bring in, just a little bit more. Want to bring out some of the angles on these stones. Right, exactly. No, it's purpose driven. It's great. And the thing is that, that the fact that you do want to do an art every once in a while, Richard, right, is helped by the fact that your contrast paints can make your army painting much easier. So then, when it's that easy, you're like, oh, well, maybe I have time. Maybe I'll try something new, right? I hear from those people regularly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, I doctored a contrast paint to be the exact wash I needed for my Tyranids. No, it is. It's except it's not limiting. I feel okay. So it's only limiting if you like are using that as your sole. Like let that become your sole thing. Like that's the only way you know how to start a mini, or the only way that you know how to paint a mini. But as I just said, I can use these as a jumping off point and just produce something great, because it's only, the thing about contrast is it's only a starter. It's the same as wet blending your base coat. You can go in afterwards with glazes and layering and adding additional shadows and make it look phenomenal. Like, aside, like I said, you have to address some finish on some of them because some of them are just freaking glossy. But that's why Reaper makes a anti-shine additive, right? That's why we make anti-shine additive. So you can, you can use them as part of an advanced painting strategy. You absolutely can. Yeah, we all need to be on the same side for sure. Anti-shine additive. Some matting medium. Actually, I should probably put some water in mine. It's been a while since I've used it. How are you, anti-shine additive? Do you need stirring? Let me look at you. Probably does. Probably needs some water. I'm just putting some water in there. I'm going to stir it around. Usually stir it around with the butt of an old paintbrush. But yeah, anti-shine additive is based on the matting substance that Reaper uses for Master Series. It does tend to evaporate quick. Yeah, I need to add more water for this guy for sure. I need to stir it up a lot too. But it's kind of a goopy, pasty stuff. You only need a tiny bit added to a few drops of your paint, just like a tiny, tiny bit of what I've got on this, to mat it out. The thing about it is never overuse it. Like, start with very tiny amounts and then go out from there. That's why this is such an old bottle, is I only need a little bit of it, and I only deal with it when I'm so many of the paints that I use now are actually dead matte and need more of a satin medium, like Chimera and some of the scale color. I don't use this stuff very much, but if you need to matte down a glossy contrast paint, it's the way to go. Now, some contrast paints aren't as glossy. Be careful about it. Make sure, okay, so the matting agents out there, be careful and make sure it's a very fine matting agent, Richard, or it's going to give you a gritty texture, and you don't want that. Reaper learned this the hard way. If you recall the texture of the old Pro paints. Not all matting agents are made the same, so it's got to be a really fine one. Talc-based is good. I'm just loading more water into this so that it'll stay, so I can keep it good. Just putting some big drops out of my water here into it. There we go. And anti-shine additive is something that you're never actually likely going to get to. One second. you're probably never going to get it to squeeze out unless you can thin it to a certain point. I just pop the top off and grab a little bit. Use it more like a jar. Matte additive. Okay, they renamed it. Okay, cool. I mean, you could send him to Ron Moonlight. He's not in charge, but Ron is, I assume, the one who's a major force behind new colors now. He was always, he created some of the last sets, like the Dungeon Dwellers colors. Okay, yeah, if you use a talc, then you're okay. You could use a talc-based flattener for Master Series and for other things if you want it more matte. Just be careful that it's not a clay-based or something like that. Those tend to be way too high particle size to give a good result. All matte mediums are not created equal. I'm going to actually paint a shadow in underneath Caerindra. Oh yeah, who knows? Yeah, they renamed some stuff after I left. That's fine. I also called it anti-shine additive because sometimes when I said matte, people who were new to the hobby would look at me like, "Ring? What is that?" But I don't care. Not my thing anymore. Reaper can do whatever they want. But yeah, as with any hobby, practice is the way forward. Practice, iteration, trying new things. I mean, like I said, even something like contrast paint can be absolutely integrated into a more advanced painting style. It's absolutely the case. The thing to do, and it really depends, right? Like if you are really good at contrast paint, then you probably want to integrate it with a higher end style. Because if you're really good at it, if you really understand it, and you've worked with it a lot, then chances are you can make it do some cool stuff. And you should stick to that, right? Until you've maybe you've learned different techniques that you like a little better. But if you never do, it's not a big deal. Use what works for you. If you're able to put out a beautiful miniature and you used contrast paint on it, don't let anybody say, "Oh, you used contrast paint on that." It's kind of like, yeah, and I'm proud of it. What of it? Especially with our results-oriented culture, if you can use it and get a good result, very few people will care. So as you can see, as we bring in the blue here, we're really bringing out a lot of the texture. Yeah. Both. Yeah, sometimes people can just be cliquish about the hobby. If you don't do their kind of thing, they're not interested in hanging out with you. That's just the way it is. You can't change those people, so I mean, just find people who are your crowd. So just doubling down a little bit on our dark. It's giving us a cool tone for our shadows, which is good. Shadows are usually cool. The exception is like warm light bouncing off a warm surface. Can make shadows very warm. So like sunshine on a beach with golden sand is going to give you a very strong, warm bounce light. Can give you warm shadows. Alright, so we're getting there. I'm pretty happy here. Need more here. Yeah, it just, you know, it's easy. It makes it easier. It's the closest thing to a silver bullet I've ever seen. But again, it's not going to give you everything, right? So it's going to do some things very, very well. And being happy with that is just fine. I mean, there's a reason that a bunch of companies all came out with like copycats of contrast paint, like the Express paint that you mentioned. It's like they realized, oh, dope, this is actually something that a lot of hobbyists are going to want. I feel like it's a little silly how many companies jumped on the bandwagon, but that's just what happens in the industry. Like, since my vacation. Which vacation? How long ago, Sibin? I've slept since then. I had some time off for the holidays. But I don't think I've had a proper vacation since October. First edition Army Painter, huh? The ones that reactivate. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was Hawaii in October. Yeah, I haven't been to Arizona since ReaperCon. But yeah, life's okay. The Hawaii vacation was wonderful. All I say on stream now is just that I want to be back in Hawaii. So that would make this stream even earlier. I would have to be up in the middle of the night. That's alright. I'm not in danger of moving to Hawaii. Sadly. David wouldn't do it. He has this thing called a job and he kind of needs to be here. So silly. And that's just ridiculous, Caerindra. Like, that kind of expectation, like, that we thought you were going to do good, you know, good job. It's like, why do you care? You're here playing this game and you aren't doing a lick of work, so shut up. Alright, so we've got some texture up here on top of the griffin head that I also want to bring out. But we're going to bring that out probably with just highlighting instead of shading. But I am, these cracks here, I am going to shade in. Yep. Yeah, doing colored shadows is the next step up from that, from Zenith. I haven't done the whole colored underpainting thing yet. I'm planning to do something on it for my Patreon because I've been wanting to try it out. Understanding how it works is pretty easy, but you gotta have some color. You gotta understand some color interactions. But then it's no different from like putting a black wash over yellow and watching it go green, right? You still need to kind of understand some of the interactions. Yeah, I mean, bottom line is do the amount of paint work you want to do on something. Like, I have some models that I'm not doing top level jobs on. I mean, Anubis wasn't a top level job, but I still like him. For me, I'm just realizing that, like, I have to do a good enough job that I'm happy with how the model looks, but I don't have to do a competition level piece every time I turn around. Like, that's been my challenge. On the other hand, I sometimes feel like I stagnate because I'm doing a lot of things on this stream are very repetitive, right? And I do a lot of painting on this stream. Like, often I don't have a lot of time to paint in the evening, so I would say I do the bulk of my painting on the stream. So that's why I try to do things like the water effect we did on the elf. Because if I'm not growing, I feel I get unhappy if I'm not learning new things in a hobby. And as I rose to be a decent mini painter, finding new things to learn, they're still out there, but you gotta look for them. So just a little bit of shadow back here to bring out the texture on these rocks. It'll be a lot of me like stumbling around Moonlight. The real pro is Matt DiPietro. Matt does classes on it and coaching, I think. But he loves colored undercoat. One of my people that I coach also took his class in it and began doing a lot of it. It's neat. It can give you some neat effects. Ah, pigment interactions. Yes, yes. Yeah, that helps when you've got when you have that understanding. There aren't too many bad pigment interactions, but the ones that are there can kind of like surprise you sometimes. So just understanding what's going to happen to some colors when you put them over some others. And often that's not even a pigment interaction. It's that the color you're using maybe has more pigments in it than you thought. And so you don't get the best result when you put them over each other. Have a good one, JBT. We almost have all of our shading in. I'm taking my time with this because, I mean, this is definitely a display mini, right? We're doing this big base on it. So I want to make sure that I'm not rushing it. I want it to look good. We're getting all these shadows painted in. Then we can start doing a little bit of light. I think I'm almost there. There's just a few places. Having so many rocks, I just have to make sure I'm hitting everything. Thank you. Thank you, Moonlight. My ego liked that. Ooh, get down, ego. Get back in your box. I think there's some people out there who are making like a good run at it. I heard good things about the Turbo Dork creators, a lady who does their colors and stuff. Michelle Farnsworth had some good things to say. I just have the right brain for it, is all I can say. I mean, it was just the perfect job for me. Like, between my perfectionism and my, like, my ability to learn and understand concepts. I'm a quick learner. And, like, I'm also good at just kind of off-the-cuff extrapolation and iteration. And I love color. Like, I've always loved it. It's always been my superpower. But, I mean, you're always learning. Like, I've said before, if I ever get the chance to do another paint line, it's going to be structured very differently. Hi, Kiki. Are you here to say hello to the stream? Hold on. Let me shift over here. We got a Kiki appearance. Maybe a Kiki appearance. Let's see. Hey, Bubba. Hey, Bubba. You want your scritches? Oh, scritches from Mama. Yay! But you know what you have to give me for scritches from Mama? You have to come on the lap. You have to come up on the lap. Come up on the lap. Come up. Yay! Good girl. Good girl. There's my Keeks. There's my Keeks. Yeah, I heard about it, Cornico. I was tempted to pick some up. Hi there, good girl. Hi there, good girl. Good girl. All right, Kiki. Now we got to get me another 20 minutes or so, okay? Work. Yep. 20 minutes. Go settle. I didn't even use minis. Oh, you booted a couple. Good. It would not be an inquisitive paw if Kiki was here. She'd be snoodling the heck out of that cat, and that cat would not be happy. Pretty sure she's an epic snoodler. That's what one of my other dogs, Thorn, he was the pain in the ass dog. I was always worried because he had high prey drive that he would, like, you know, be really rough with the cat, but he would just snoodle, like he'd put his snoot under the cat and just lift the cat up. And Panther hated him. But it was just funny. Kiki would be an epic snoodler, I think. She'd be like that. She'd just be like, I cannot get my snoot into enough places. I need to snoodle you more thoroughly. But yeah, if I did another paint line, I'd want to go at it from a bit of a different perspective. Very much a pigment-based perspective, I think. That I don't know when that would ever happen. Like, it may never happen. That's why I don't really think about it a lot. I think my paint line development days are over. Reaper would have to totally change their paint line for me to, like, get the urge to get off my butt and turn our garage into a paint lab. David would not be happy. I'm already going to turn our garage into a puppy lab if Kiki has pups, so the garage changes to be what I need it to be. Kiri was Panther's best friend. They would play. Like, I have never seen a cat and a dog play like Kiri and Panther would play. Like, he would jump up onto her neck from the front and just dig at her with his paws. Like, his hind paws would just like, whoa, 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 I'm going to disembowel you, ah! And then he'd throw himself off of her and run, and she would chase him. It would just be so funny. It was just so funny. Because she'd just be standing there while he was doing his, I've got you, I've got you, I've got you thing, right? Oh, they were very good friends. It was the best, like, cat-dog relationship that I think I've ever seen. I have seen plenty of cats that would, like, curl up with a dog, but, like, that actively playing like that level of trust, when Kiri was so much bigger than he was. It was really great. They would mock wrestle together. Like, she would lie on her back and he would be, like, trying to wrestle with her, and she would be, like, trying to wrestle with him. It would just be ridiculous. Yeah. I was always sad that I never got video of it, because I only witnessed it a couple of times. I'm sure they were doing it more when, like, we weren't there. But yeah, they were good friends. the night Kiri had her first puppies, Panther came creeping up to like sit in the front of the whelping box to just observe, and she let him. That's how you know, like, with a new mama who's never had pups before, that's how you know they're good friends. All right, I think we've got. Yeah, it was really sweet. Like, I looked around and there was the cat sitting right inside the door of the whelping box. Like, and there's Kiri with her babies. Panther, of course, is probably like, "What have you done? We've brought more of those things into the world." But yeah, they were probably my two favorite animals that we've had. We're well suited. Alright, so I think we've got everything I want. I made downsize, like some of this dark that I put up on top of areas of places, I make glaze over. Oh, we need this bit. Wee. And just bringing out a little bit of detail. You can see how that brings out that detail. Over here, likewise, I need this shelf to be colored in. Now, if I didn't do this with layering and I tried to do it with a wash, I could get like a lot of the details outlined, but everything would go blue. Everything. And then I would have to go back over the top with all the base coat. So even though this is taking time, I'd rather do it this way and not wipe out like and have to redo like colors. And also when you're trying to layer up colors over a different colored base, it does change, right? It changes the result depending on how many coats you're willing to put on. And so I would rather do it this way, keep my main color intact and work up from there. And I'll de-emphasize some of this blue as I go, depending on how I feel and where I am, where it is. So I finished my Marika paint-along, put it up yesterday. I mentioned this before. We're going to be using one of Christine's, one of Moonlight Minis in the chat. One of her models next. Might do it for a couple, actually, since they're easy to get or to print. I may start going to 3D printed models for a lot of my paint-along stuff, depending, because it seems like as long as it's easy to order if you don't have a printer, that a lot of my peeps have printers, so we might start going that way. Oh yeah, Cornico. Yeah, that's good friends. Those dogs, that dog and that cat are good friends if the kitty goes in the whelping box when the dog is out. The cat's really curious about the baby, so. There we go. Alright, so do we have time? Maybe a little bit of time. I do have that basic stone gray mixed up, which should be a little lighter than what I've got underneath now, so. Oh, I blorfed. Yeah, that's fine. It's probably beyond being able to be scrubbed off, but it's easy enough to fix. Yep, we'll just have to grip some ash and blue. Oh, no, this is coming off. As long as you catch it before it fully cures, especially with the paint underneath it being like cured. Otherwise you paint over it. It's not a big deal. There we go. Ta-da. Aw, that's cute, Caerindra. Yeah, sometimes just a gentle buffing if the paint is fresh. You can just take it right off. And my bottom layer is long since cured, so it's not having any problems with that. All right. There's a little crack in there that I forgot to emphasize. So my stone gray is pretty bold. I'm getting a lot of brush marks, so if I want to use the stone gray, I'm going to have to either thin it or I'm going to have to do a lot of stippling and texture brush strokes. I think I'm going to thin it just a little bit. Don't want it quite that strong. Yeah, I wonder. YouTube has you figured out. Googs understands you. Yeah, Googs has started serving me up a lot of knitting videos on my YouTube, which is fine. That's how I found that one guy who helped my borders. So it was a Googs suggestion. A lot of people come to my channel from Google suggestions, from like YouTube suggestions. So algorithms really are like, they can be helpful. Need to get my other paint along done today. I need to shoot the rest of it, and then I've got that other shorts video, the one about resuscitating old paint, that I'll be working on right away in the start of February. So just bringing up some new lighter paint. Kind of have to turn my model to look at the kind of subtleties of my sculpt. I know that I put some texture up here, so I'm going to turn it so that the light illuminates that and gives me the best chance to bring it out with paint. Let's see how I'm picking that out. Nice crows. Hey, whatever works. I can't watch anything visual while I'm painting. Like, I have to have background. If I have a movie on, it has to be one I've seen a zillion times, so that I only look up when I see it, when there's a scene I really want to see again. So you can see how that's just bringing up subtle texture there. And then I can emphasize that. And if I feel like I need it to blend in better, then we'll just do a glaze. It's actually pretty cool. For the first part of my YouTube, like, experiment, how to make your own wash was actually the most popular video. But now I'm much happier with this. Now the most popular video is how to control your paint, which is the whole loading and brush loading and unloading. The video I said was probably the most important video I've ever done. I'm very happy that it is the most important, watched video now. Means that my guess, my feel that it was important was the right one. Alright, we are almost to the point. I'm just going to do the brow on this guy. Even if I've done a smooth sculpt, I can suggest that there's texture just by doing irregular brush strokes. So it's a video day for me. Pretty much video days right up to the end of the month. Just gone live? Awesome. Thanks, Cornico. Anybody wants to watch cool Viking reenactment stuff with burning ships, you should do it. So just doing a little extra highlighting on the upper parts of the stone is going to help bring out the dimensions of that. Definitely using a stippling stroke to get very irregular results here. So you can start seeing the contrast coming in. And again, picking out the tops of some of this stuff. So we get more detail. It's just painting designs. I mean, definitely thin your paint, keep your brushes on the smaller side. If you're going to do a particular design, practice on a piece of paper, cardstock, something before you do it, so you make sure that you can do it at the scale you want. Richard, even if you do it dark, the way to get over that is to put a lightweight wash or glaze of skin tone over the top of it. That'll make it look like a tattoo, but it'll also like knock it down if you get too strong with it. So we've got the start of our rocks starting to come up and highlight now to bring out all of this area. A lot of this is going to be snow covered, so I don't want to put a lot of effort into it on this pass. But I do want to hit like stuff. I don't know exactly where I'll be putting the snow, and I'll definitely be leaving some stonework. Obviously, place around the brazier here is probably going to be not a lot of snow. It might have been swept clean. We'll see, but we'll think about it. But we are slowly bringing up highlights now. We'll work them warmer as we go. It's typically not used for war paint, but used for tattoos. So it's going to make your model look a bit more more like it's tattoos, Richard. But I mean, either way, it's cool, right? So if you do get too heavy with it and you need to, I've always been more of a fan of tattoos. I mean, I did war paint here. And the key here is, if you're doing a bigger model, is to remember to highlight the parts of it that are going to be in the light. But otherwise, it's not too terribly bad. I tend to like tattoos better than war paint. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's getting there. Definitely, we've brought out all of its details now with the shadows. So now we can concentrate more on highlighting. And then we'll put the snow on, and maybe we'll paint the brazier next time. We probably need to get the brazier in place before we start playing with the snow. So we need to make sure that we can set this guy up appropriately. And maybe even do some kind of like corrosion stains on the stone underneath its feet. So yeah, I need to remember to prime that. Thanks, everybody. I think we'll call it there. Tomorrow, I showed my own stream of this, but I didn't show you guys what happened with Ed. Remember, I had propped him up so that the green stuff could cure, and this is what we have now. It's very, very strong. I can't even move it with a fingernail. I'll do more green stuff tomorrow. To make those tendrils kind of come together a little bit better and look a little better around the skull. But we will have a floating skull, and I'll probably do both green work and then some basing stuff. But we at least have a proper floating skull minion now for Ed. So yeah, we'll do more green to blend all that in, and probably cut away some of the thicker tendrils a little bit here to make them thinner, so I can blend them in. I don't want to do everything because it's the only thing that's holding the skull. So yeah, so we'll kind of compromise on that. But yes, thanks guys, and we'll work on Ed tomorrow, so do come back for that. I hope you have a lovely Tuesday. I'm going to try to have a productive one, because end of the month, lots to do. All right, thank you so much for corralling the stream as usual, Quindy, and I will see you guys later, all right? Have a good one.